we look at the past, I would hope we can get inspired by looking at the craftsmanship and looking at the details and long to build better because we see beautiful things like this. We then have the other end, right? Those are the high end, right? Those are the guys that are doing $1 million jobs. And what does the everyman do, right? He gets a kit house. And so at the same period of time that this is happening and actually lasting much longer are kit houses. Anybody read any of these books, Houses by Mail or any of these things? They're really fascinating books about the story. This one's about Sears. Sears and their kind of deal. But a number of companies were involved in kit houses, and we're going to talk about kind of how and why it worked, and maybe why it doesn't work today. These were the companies that did kit house building, right? Aladdin until '83, right? They lasted quite a long time. That's the latest one. Yeah. Lewis was 75. Sears and Roebuck, the most famous, they did between 60 and 70,000 houses. Probably 40,000 of those were done between 28 and 31. Okay, so they figured out how to get better at it, and we'll talk about that. These were, the way they were marketed is they were made for someone who wanted to save money. Okay, and it doesn't look like, when you look at the catalogs and you look at how pretty those houses and those renderings are, that that's what was taking place. But there was a lot of people who couldn't qualify for a house. Now, this is 1920. The FHA doesn't have a federally funded mortgage, a 15 or 30-year mortgage, until 1935, right? Because of the Great Depression, they're trying to make houses more affordable because everyone was losing their houses. And so at this time, to get a house, you had to, we'll see prices from, $1,000 to $5,000, but you had to pay that loan back within 3 to 5 years. So, imagine paying your mortgage off in 3 to 5 years. That would have been hard. And so they didn't really have financing. So kit houses were an inexpensive way to build. There a lot of times they go out to farms where they didn't have the labor. A lot of times they go to what are they called? Factory housing, right? Like Longbill, when they built their city in Washington, they would contract with a company like Sears or Aladdin and build 3 streets of houses from kit houses. It's amazing. We'll see it, I guess, in a second. There was a problem with qualifying loans. There was, if you couldn't qualify for a loan with your bank, you were, so these were troubled loan people, right? You couldn't get a conventional loan. You oftentimes got a kit house, because especially when Sears figured out how to do the financing, they got a lot more business.
Did the kit house literally have everything you need to build that house?
Everything but the cement.
But like nails, hardware, bathroom fixtures.
Hold that thought.
Okay.
I'm going to show you. It seems like a no-brainer that Montgomery Wards and Sears would sell kit houses, right? If you've ever seen their catalogs from the 1880s, 1890s, they were this thick, and they carried everything in the house, right? And so you could order anything you wanted for your house from the Sears catalog. So building kit houses seemed natural because they wanted to sell building materials. They wanted to sell this kind of stuff, and these are the Montgomery Wards and Sears version of the building catalog. But they failed for a long time, and Sears could not make their kit house thing work. And so in like 1912 or something, they put this guy in charge of it. I can't remember his name. And he's the one who figured out how to make it work and how to make it profitable. And then when they figured out the financing, it just went gangbusters. Their biggest year was 29 to 31 when they figured out the financing. It came in 2 freight cars typically, okay, and it did carry everything for the house except concrete and plaster. They say that they stopped doing it as houses became more technologically advanced, although we know the Aladdin did it for much longer. Most of them peter out in the 30s and 40s because of World War II and the Great Depression. Sears actually stops doing it in like 33, then picks it up again in like 35, and then it stops by 40. So the Great Depression really had a tough time on this market. This is the most expensive house. The Magnolia, $58.49. I mean, look at all the things that downspouts, sash weights, hardware, eave trough, casing, that was for plumbing, colonnade roofing, painting materials, mantles, tile, grout, right? It's crazy.
But the buyer had to know how to do all this himself.
Yeah, and so, what's your point? This is probably from like 19. This is 1918, the manual for construction. Okay, so this shows you the radiators, the tile, how these things go together. It was kind of an Odell's book, right? Which is how to build a house and talking about siding and trim. A lot of these kit houses, everything came numbered, so they knew that there was people that couldn't afford or couldn't afford a builder. So literally, the studs were numbered, like you could put it together that way. So a lot of them went a long way towards improving the building process by making it a paint by number kind of building process, which is kind of crazy. But they would have sent a book like this, right, along with the how to do it, and people would put it together. Now, if you read this book, it was a very popular book 20 years ago. They've actually gone back and chased these houses down, and you can see them where they are and stuff. And if you go on the internet, there's tons of houses there. And so there's no doubt the houses were built. There's no doubt the houses were charming. It's kind of a fascinating story. This is the mid-range house, the Martha Washington.
So they built these on slab?
The pier and beam. Yeah. And so it appears that a lot of people would do the excavation themselves, not always having a basement, and then would kind of build up from there. And then this was their cheapest house. These were houses that would sometimes be lake houses. These would be summer cottages. There are pictures of people putting these houses together in like 2 days. There's one of the advertisements was a time-lapse photo of these houses being constructed and put together. So they would be used for a lot of different things, and but it's a fascinating period of time. And then here's some covers from Aladdin.